The Last Empire, how the Sassanids fought, fell, and lived on in exile. In the scorched ruins of a battlefield once ruled by Parthian kings, a new dynasty rose, fierce, ambitious, and ready to reclaim the title King of Kings. But how did a humble priest's son, named Ardashir, turn a crumbling empire into one of the most powerful forces in the ancient world? What drove the Sassanids to challenge Rome, tame the Huns, and build a golden age of Persian culture that would echo through centuries? And what happened when the royal throne became a game of musical chairs, where queens ruled, generals betrayed, and one poor emperor was murdered by a miller who didn't even know he was royalty? This is not just history. This is a saga of ambition, betrayal, survival, and exile. From the rise of the House of Sasan to its final breath in a Chinese court, we'll uncover the secrets of a dynasty that refused to die quietly. So grab your goblet, adjust your crown, and prepare for a journey through ancient Persia like you've never seen before. It all began in 224 AD, when a man named Ardashir I, who clearly didn't believe in modest ambitions, decided the Parthians had overstayed their welcome. At the Battle of Hormozgan, Ardashir gave the last Parthian monarch a swift boot into history's recycle bin and declared himself Shahanshah, King of Kings, a title borrowed from the Achaemenids, because why settle for king when you can be king of all kings? Thus rose the Sassanid Empire, a Persian powerhouse that would go toe-to-sandal with the mighty Roman Empire, and later its Byzantine remix. These weren't polite diplomatic squabbles either. These were full-blown slugfests across deserts, mountains, and rivers. The Sassanids even managed to beat the Romans on occasion, which in Roman terms was like losing a chariot race to a goat. While the Sassanids were busy flexing on the Romans, they had to keep one eye on the east. Enter the Hephthalites, white Huns, who were basically the nomadic version of a bad neighbor, raiding, pillaging, and refusing to return borrowed horses. The Sassanids fought them off, and when the Huns showed up in the 5th century, it was like a sequel nobody asked for. But the Sassanids weren't just warriors, they were patrons of culture. Under Khosrow I Anushirwan, born in 501 AD and nicknamed the Just, because the mildly reasonable didn't have the same ring, Persia entered a golden age. He built the Academy of Ctesiphon, a think tank of ancient brilliance, and laid the groundwork for the Shahnameh, the Persian epic that makes Homer's Iliad look like a haiku. Fast forward to 602 AD. Khosrow II, a man with a grudge and a crown, launched a war against the Byzantine usurper Phocas, who had murdered Khosrow's buddy, Emperor Maurice. The Byzantine-Sassanid War, 602–628, started with Persian fireworks. Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and even parts of Anatolia fell like dominoes. They even laid siege to Constantinople in 626, which was basically the ancient version of knocking on Rome's front door with a battering ram. But then came Heraclius, the Rocky Balboa of Byzantine emperors. He reorganized, retaliated, and by 628, Persia was bleeding territory and morale. The war had lasted 26 years and left both empires gasping for breath like two boxers who forgot the match had a time limit. Khosrow II, now less King of Kings and more King of Regrets, was overthrown in a palace coup. His son Kavad II took over, but his reign was shorter than a TikTok video. He died in a plague that also wiped out a chunk of the population. Now pause for a sec, step into the extraordinary, subscribe to Eccentric Digital Pixel. Welcome to the wild frontier of creativity, where pixels pulse with imagination and every frame tells a story you've never seen before. At Eccentric Digital Pixel, we don't follow trends, we bend reality. From surreal digital art to mind-blowing visual experiments, this is your backstage pass to the future of expression. Why hit subscribe? Get exclusive access to jaw-dropping digital creations. Be the first to witness new drops by turning on notifications. Dive into a world of eccentric brilliance that inspires, challenges, and captivates. Join a community of visionaries who crave the unconventional. Don't just scroll, experience the pixel revolution. Smash that subscribe button and ring the bell to never miss a masterpiece. Because normal is boring, and you were born to see the world differently. Then came Ardashir III, a child ruler who was dethroned by Shaharbaraz, a general who played musical thrones with the nobility. Enter Boran, Khosrow's daughter, who tried to stabilize things before being replaced by her sister Azarmigdukht, who was promptly murdered by Rostam, not the hero from the Shahnameh, sadly. Boran returned briefly, but by 632 the nobility had had enough drama and installed Yazdegerd III, the last Sassanid Shah. Yazdegerd was more figurehead than ruler, like a ceremonial teapot in a collapsing kitchen. And then came the storm. It was 636 AD, and the Sassanid Empire was wobbling like a drunk elephant on stilts. Enter General Rostam Farrukhzad, a man with a mustache so glorious it could command legions. He was tasked with defending the empire at the Battle of al-Qadisiyyah, where the Muslim armies, lean, fast, and terrifyingly efficient, came charging through Mesopotamia like a sandstorm with swords. Rostam, bless him, tried, but the battle turned into a disaster. The Persian war elephants panicked, the cavalry got bogged down, and Rostam himself was reportedly trampled to death while trying to rally his troops. The defeat shattered the backbone of the Sassanid military, and within months, the jewel of the empire, Ctesiphon, the capital, was taken. The Shahanshah, Yazdegerd III, fled eastward, probably muttering, "I need a vacation," as he crossed the Zagros Mountains. Yazdegerd, the last king of kings, was now on the run like a royal Forrest Gump. He ordered cavalry raids into Muslim territory, hoping to stall the advance. The Arabs responded by pushing east again, and Yazdegerd fled to Hulwan, then deeper into Media, and eventually into the Iranian heartland. He raised another army, because why not, and faced the Muslims at the Battle of Nahavand. It was a catastrophe. The Persians were routed, and Yazdegerd began a tragic game of imperial hide-and-seek, from Isfahan to Estok, then Kirman, where he managed to annoy the local governor so much that even his own allies were like, "You again?" Eventually, Yazdegerd reached Merv, hoping to rally support from the Turks. But fate had other plans. Legend says he was killed by a miller who didn't recognize him. Imagine being the king of kings and getting whacked by a guy whose biggest concern was flour prices. Other accounts say the governor of Merv did the deed. Either way, the curtain fell on the last Sassanid emperor in a scene worthy of Shakespeare's darkest tragedies. But wait, this isn't the end. The House of Sasan had diplomatic tentacles stretching across continents. Way out east, the Tang dynasty ruled over a glittering empire of 50 million people from Chang'an, a city so opulent it made Rome look like a rustic Airbnb. Since the 5th century, Sassanid embassies had been visiting northern Chinese dynasties, exchanging silk, philosophy, and probably a few awkward dinner conversations. By the time the Arabs conquered Persia, the Tang were well aware of their Persian friends. In fact, many Sassanids had already settled in Chang'an, appearing in Tang literature and sculpture like exotic celebrities. Enter Perros, son of Yazdegerd III. While his siblings faded into obscurity, Perros embarked on a journey that reads like a historical adventure novel. He escaped to Tokharistan, found refuge among friendly local rulers, and in 61 sent an SOS to the Tang court. "Help, I'm a prince, and I've got a caliphate problem." The Tang didn't send armies, but they did something remarkable. They declared Perros the ruler of the Persian area command, with a capital at Zaranj. In 662, Emperor Gaozong officially titled him King of Persia, which was basically the Tang version of saying, "We got you, fam." In 677, he requested permission to build a Persian temple in Chang'an, either a Zoroastrian fire temple or a Christian church, reflecting the religious tolerance of late Sassanid rule. The Tang said yes, because when you're hosting exiled royalty, you don't skimp on hospitality. According to the diary of his son Narsa, Perros died of disease around 679, requesting a simple burial. No grand mausoleum, no golden sarcophagus, just a quiet end for a man who had once dreamed of reclaiming an empire. But the legacy of the Sassanids lived on. In Tang sculpture, in Persian literature, and in the memory of a dynasty that refused to vanish quietly. From Rostam's doomed charge to Perros's exile in China, the story of the last Sassanids is one of resilience, diplomacy, and the stubborn refusal to be forgotten. In the twilight of his life, Perros III, son of the last Sassanid emperor Yazdegerd III, lay surrounded by the entire exiled Persian court, robes flowing, turbans tilted just so, and the Tang Emperor Gaozong himself, seated in golden splendor. It was the kind of scene that would make a poet weep and a Netflix producer salivate. Perros, now a decorated Chinese general, took his benefactor's hands and looked westward, toward the land of his ancestors. "I have done what I could for my homeland and I have no regrets," he said, with a kind of gravitas that makes statues cry. Then he turned east, toward the empire that had sheltered him, and declared, "I am grateful to China, my new homeland." Mic drop. No notes. Before his final breath, he urged his fellow exiles to devote themselves to the Tang emperor, to use their talents in service of their adopted home. And then, like a true Shahanshah, he died peacefully. But wait. This was no ordinary funeral. A beautiful horse was made to gallop 33 times around his coffin, one lap for each victory he had won. That's right, no 21-gun salute, just equestrian glory. His statue, though tragically beheaded, still stands near Emperor Gaozong's tomb in Xi'an, a silent testament to their friendship. Nearby, another mutilated statue of a man named Nanmei, possibly a fellow Persian noble, keeps him company, like a ghostly chess partner in the afterlife. After Peroz's death in 679, the Tang court wasn't done with the Sassanids. They sent General Pei Xingjian, a man who could outwit a fox in a maze, to escort Narsa, Peroz's son and court hostage, westward with an army to rescue Persia from Muslim rule. Yes, you heard that right. Rescue Persia. It was like sending Aragorn and Frodo to retake Mordor. They marched through the Gansu corridor and the Tarim Basin, entering lands once ruled by the Western Turks. These Turks were supposed to be Tang allies, but had secretly been cozying up to the Tibetan Empire, China's nemesis. Pei, ever the strategist, pretended to be interested in fighting the Arabs. The Turks thinking, clever Chinese, let them pass. Big mistake. Pei turned around and smacked down the Turks, re-establishing Tang dominance in the region. But here's the twist. Once the dust settled, the army abandoned Narsa. Yep, left him like a royal backpack in a diplomatic airport lounge. Their priority was securing the region, not restoring a Persian throne. From here, Narsa fades into the mist of history like a subplot in a lost epic. He never reached Persia. Instead, he spent 20 years fighting Arabs in the eastern provinces, aided by friendly Turkish chieftains, probably while muttering, "Thanks for nothing, Pei." In 708, he returned to China and died of disease, his dreams of reclaiming Persia buried with him. Meanwhile, the caliphate tightened its grip on eastern Iran, and the Sassanid dream grew dimmer. In 728, a final Sassanid pretender named Khosrow tried to retake Persia with help from a Turkish chieftain. It fizzled faster than a damp firecracker. The remaining exiles in China lived comfortably, thanks to the generosity of the Tang emperors, until the An Lushan rebellion in 755 turned the imperial court into a budget-cutting frenzy. Foreign nobles? Sorry, no more stipends. Hope you saved your jade. Let's not forget that Shah Khosrow once, yes, the same dynasty, famously introduced chess to the Middle East. And like chess, history is a game of strategy, sacrifice, and surprise checkmates. A platform that turns problem-solving into an art form. Instead of passively watching lectures, you'll master concepts by solving fun, bite-sized puzzles. Brilliant's interactive approach helps you go from curiosity to mastery faster than a Persian prince crossing the Pamirs. Before you go, if you enjoyed this tale of exiled kings, galloping horses, and imperial intrigue, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and click the notification bell on our channel. That way, you'll never miss another epic drop from the